She gave up everything to build his empire. Amara Ndlovu, a woman in a wheelchair, sold her small shop and used all her savings to help her husband, Cato, launch his tech company, believing if he wins, we both win. But when he secured a $200 million government contract using her disability profile to meet inclusion criteria, he erased her name from the documents. At the celebration gala, Amara was left outside in the rain while Cato raised his glass beside a younger assistant. Days later, he kicked her out of their home with nothing. No phone, no shoes, no dignity. But instead of breaking, she rose. From a shelter for abused women, Amara began building Riseatech, a company empowering disabled women. 1 year later, she stood on a national stage, draped in red wheels of gold, sharing her story of being written out of what she helped create. And behind her, the screen lit up with emails, forged signatures, and undeniable proof. Within minutes, federal agents walked in. Cato was arrested under the same spotlight he once claimed. And Amara? She simply whispered, "Sometimes silence is the loudest verdict." This is a true story of betrayal, resilience, and poetic justice, and I can't wait to share the full journey with you. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so I can greet you properly. The rain came without warning, one of those Nairobi storms that silenced the streetlights and filled the gutters with secrets. A low thunder rolled far off, too tired to be angry, just there, muttering like a warning no one would listen to. Behind the rain-spattered window of apartment 7B, a soft glow pulsed. A screen. A woman. Alone. Amara Ndlovu sat motionless in her wheelchair, her fingers resting on the keyboard like fallen branches. The room was dim, lit only by the blue of her laptop and the flicker of headlights gliding through the wet glass. Her shadow split across the wall, half in the light, half swallowed by the dark. The cursor blinked, waiting for the final period in a proposal that had taken 6 sleepless weeks and every drop of strength she had left. She took a breath, slow, shallow, and typed the last line of the Milestone Digital Inclusion Initiative. $200 million. That's what it was worth. To the government, to the investors, to the future of equitable tech access in Kenya. But to her, it was something else entirely. A lifeline disguised as labor. Her eyes lingered on the closing words, empowering women with disabilities, building from the margins. She pressed save. On the edge of her desk, a cold cup of coffee. Next to it, a silver frame, the wedding photo. Cato's arm curled around her shoulder, both smiling, young, before the accident, before the war of silences, before ambition swallowed love whole. Amara reached for the mug, paused. Her hands shook slightly. She wasn't sure if it was the cold or the memory. She set it down untouched. Then she opened the drawer. Papers, contracts, her initials signed at the bottom of page after page. Cato had been precise, always placing sticky tabs where she needed to sign. "Just formalities," he would say with a kiss to her cheek. "You trust me, right?" She had trusted him, enough to sell her boutique, the only thing she ever owned, enough to give up her nights, her body's healing, her pride, to build Ndlovu systems beside him. Or so she believed. Her phone buzzed. "Kato." She hesitated, then answered. "Almost done?" His voice was honeyed, light. "It's finished," she said softly. "Sending now." A pause. Then, "Just one more thing, babe. The authorization doc. Legal needs your signature. Just formality." "I'll check my email," she said, already clicking. It was a single page. Simple. Boring. Just like the last 30 forms. She didn't even read it. She signed. He said, "Perfect. That's the last piece. We've won." She smiled. Her chest rose with the memory of everything they'd sacrificed. The long nights coding together, her teaching herself new compliance laws while managing physiotherapy, his hands clutching hers after the first pitch meeting. He'd always said, "The world remembers winners." She believed him. She didn't see the email vanish seconds after she sent it. didn't notice that the document she'd just signed wasn't a simple form, but full power of attorney, transferring all her shares, all voting rights, every ounce of ownership, to him. Outside, thunder groaned again. Somewhere a dog barked, muffled by the walls. Amara closed the laptop. The screen went black, and for a moment her reflection stared back at her, split in two by the rain-slicked window, one half lit by the hallway lamp, the other drowned in shadow. She wheeled toward the glass. Outside, Nairobi breathed in neon. The wet streetlights bent through the window pane like ghosts, and in the glass, her face fractured, blurred. She stared at it, not blinking. She didn't know why, only that something felt off. A quiet alarm ringing behind her ribs. She pressed her fingers to the window. It was cold. Down below, the city moved on, unaware of what had just been stolen from her. Amara stayed there for a long time, listening to the rain, letting the silence settle around her like a second skin. Behind her, on the table, the laptop blinked once, then went still, and the woman in the wheelchair whispered to the glass, "We won." But her voice cracked on the last word. They clapped like thunder. Laughter spilled over champagne glasses, ringing through the marble lobby of the Hilton like it was the happiest place on earth. Flashbulbs popped. The scent of roses, cologne, and success coated the air like perfume too thick to breathe. Amara was not on the guest list. She sat in the back seat of the cab, a bouquet of stargazer lilies trembling in her lap. She'd wrapped them herself, deliberate, soft, careful, white ribbon, clean edges. Her hands still smelled faintly of the florist's shop, a touch of eucalyptus clinging to her sleeves. Her dress was navy blue, the same one she wore the day they signed the first prototype contract. She'd chosen it because he once said, "This color makes your eyes look like the sky after rain." The driver slowed as they approached the hotel entrance. Golden light spilled from the grand revolving doors. She could see it already. White tablecloths, violins, people in gowns and suits who laughed as if they knew they belonged. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet. She paid, no tip. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalk still shimmered wet under her wheels as she rolled forward. A man in a black blazer moved to stop her just before the door. "Name?" he asked, too quick, too casual. "Amara Ndlovu," she said. He glanced down at his tablet, swiped, frowned. "I'm the co-founder," she added, "and Cato's wife." He looked up, blinked. "I'm sorry, the media team provided a restricted list. Staff only, founders, investors." "I just told you," she said, voice steady. Was, one of them." "There's no Amara on the list," he said. "Only Cato and Ndlovu and Lindy, his assistant." For a moment, the rain in her chest returned, falling hard, invisible. Behind him, a cheer erupted. The sliding glass door opened as someone stepped out, a glimpse of a ballroom, her company's logo beaming 10 feet tall on the wall. A voice echoed, "To Cato, the man who did the impossible." Amara didn't blink. The man leaned down. "Please step aside, ma'am. You're not authorized to enter." "Ma'am?" She turned slightly, just enough to see her own reflection in the glass door. Hair neat, eyes hollow, dress perfect, hands trembling slightly now like the petals in her lap. She shifted the wheels, moved to the side. Didn't argue. But she didn't leave either. Instead, she found a narrow glass panel near the edge of the ballroom, slightly tinted, but clear enough. Her eyes adjusted. She watched him. Cato stood in front of the crowd, back straight, suit tailored to a fault. He looked taller somehow, like success had lifted his spine. Lindy was beside him. Younger, her laugh sharp. Her hand lingered a little too long on his elbow. They looked good together. On the screen behind them, a slideshow looped through images of the company's journey, rendered graphics, product photos, investor logos, official titles. Amara squinted. A page appeared. Founding members. Just 2 names, Cato and Ndlovu, Lindy Abebe. Her name was gone. Deleted. The flowers in her lap slipped sideways. She didn't catch them. From behind, someone spoke low, almost whispering. "I remember you." She turned. A man stood there, older, glasses slipping down his nose, a former systems analyst. She recognized his limp before his face. "You're Amara," he said, "right? You used to handle compliance before the merger." "Yes," she said. He looked around, then leaned in. "Cato said you didn't want to be involved anymore. Said you didn't like crowds, that it made you look vulnerable." The word struck like a shard of glass. She didn't respond, didn't flinch, just nodded once. He disappeared into the party like smoke. She looked down. The lilies were crushed. The rain started again, quiet, reluctant, just enough to blur the edges of her reflection. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like crying. She felt cold, not numb, not broken, cold. She let the flowers fall, wheeled backward. The doorman didn't try to stop her. As she reached the curb, she heard someone toast again. The crowd cheered. Applause filled the street like distant gunfire. A car horn blared. Amara didn't look back. The navy blue dress clung to her knees now, rain damp and heavy. Her wheels made a soft, sucking sound over the wet asphalt. People stared. No one spoke. At the corner, the traffic light turned green. Her reflection flashed again in the glass of a parked car. Still no tears. Only the quiet stare of a woman who had woken up. Something had broken, yes, but something else had cracked open. By the time she reached the next streetlight, her fingers stopped shaking. She no longer held anything in her hands. And in the space where grief had lived, something unfamiliar bloomed. Not rage, not revenge. Something colder, quieter, like steel. She crossed the street. The bouquet lay behind her, half in the gutter, half on the curb. Split, just like her name. The wheels creaked softly across the hallway tiles, slicing through the silence like a whisper too sharp to ignore. It was 3:04 a.m., the kind of hour where even the air seemed to sleep. Amara opened her eyes to the sound of zippers, not the soft kind, the rushed kind, the kind that stripped fabric and secrets at once. A suitcase slid across the wooden floor. Another followed. Then the voice. Low, clipped, familiar. "Don't wake her, just grab the tablet. I already pulled the drives." The breath caught in her throat before her mind even processed the words. She turned. Cato was crouched by the media shelf, unplugging the last of the office gear. His face, clean-shaven, unreadable. Behind him, Lindy stood barefoot, hair wet, clutching a rolled-up blazer under one arm and her phone in the other. "Amara?" he said, not startled, just mildly inconvenienced. She tried to sit up. The blanket tangled. Her hands clutched the armrest too tight. "What is this?" He sighed like a man tired of repeating himself. "I need space." "At 3 a.m.? Her voice cracked. Cato didn't answer right away. He picked up the duffel bag and slung it over his shoulder. His posture was effortless, practiced. "You've been unstable," he said. "You show up at events uninvited. You ask questions you don't understand. You're becoming a liability." Her eyes found Lindy. The girl stared at the floor. "You're leaving," Amara whispered, "with her." Cato didn't flinch. "You were always brilliant with words," he said, "but never numbers, never vision." She struggled to push herself forward, heart slamming. "I built this with you." "No," he said sharply. "You helped, out of pity. You gave me bandages when I needed surgery." Amara's hands trembled. She tried to steady them on the cushion's edge. "When you crashed that night, who pulled you out of the wreckage? Who got you to the ER while they thought you were already gone?" He paused, just for a moment. Then he smiled, thin, brutal. "Maybe I should have stayed dead." The words landed like a slap. They echoed in the hallway, bounced off the windows, and froze the room. He walked over to her desk, picked up her phone, scrolled. "This is company issued. Hand it over." She didn't move. He took it anyway. Amara's voice was barely audible. "You can't erase me. You've already erased yourself," he said. "I just signed the dotted line." Lindy turned away. Cato leaned forward, lips level with Amara's ear. "You think the world will listen to a broken woman in a wheelchair? You're a symbol, Amara. Symbols don't make decisions. They decorate websites." He pushed her chair. Hard. It rolled into the foyer, hitting the threshold. Her elbow knocked the wall. Then came the cold. The front door opened wide. Rain rushed in sideways, bitter, sharp, unforgiving. He wheeled her halfway onto the porch. "You'll be fine. You always land on your feet," he said. "Or Wheels. Lindy hovered behind him, eyes wide but mouth shut. Kato closed the door. It clicked, then locked. She sat there, rain running down her shoulders, soaking her nightshirt, dripping into the folds of her blanket. Somewhere a generator hummed. A cat yowled in the alley. She called out once. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. The final time her voice broke entirely. Then silence. Except for the rain. The old kind. Heavy. Familiar. The kind that makes you remember who you were when you had nothing left. Water ran down her spine. The cushion beneath her grew soggy. Her breath became mist. Still, she didn't move. In front of her, the street lamp buzzed, flickered once, then came back on. She looked up, her hair, matted now, stuck to her cheek. The porch light glinted off the lock like it was grinning. She stared at the rain. Time passed. She didn't know how long. Eventually, her eyes drifted toward the night sky. Clouded. No stars. Just a thick blanket of gray. And that's when she said it. Softly, to no one. I saved him from death. Now I have to save myself from the memory. She closed her eyes. That was the first time she didn't cry. Only breathed. It was cold, but it was also quiet. The kind of quiet that burrows and transforms. The whistle was sharp, angry. A man's voice followed, harsh and impatient. I told you, this is private property. You can't just park yourself here. Amara blinked. The light had changed. It wasn't night anymore. Her blanket was soaked. Her wrists stiff from the cold. Rain still clung to the morning, but softer now. More like a mist than a storm. The guard stood over her. He wore an orange vest and an attitude twice its size. You deaf? You need to move. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. The man huffed. What is this, a protest? You think just 'cause you got wheels you can loiter? Amara moved her lips. Still nothing. He pulled out his phone. I'll call someone to haul you out of here, trust me. She gathered the last of her strength. I'll go. It came out cracked, fragile, but it was enough. The man rolled his eyes and walked off, muttering something she didn't hear. She pushed forward slowly, each rotation of the wheel sticky from rain and rust. Her limbs ached. Her stomach groaned. Her fingers curled tighter around the rims, the metal biting through her skin. The city hadn't woken up yet, only the birds and the trash collectors. The sidewalk blurred, then the street signs, then the color blue. It came in the form of a painted gate, faded, half open. On it a sign read, House of Dawn, shelter and advocacy for women underneath. Someone had scribbled in marker, You are not alone. She stared at it for a long time, then rolled forward. Inside, it smelled like lavender soap and boiling porridge. The hallway was narrow, filled with hand-painted murals of birds in flight, some missing feathers, some flying in circles, one flying straight toward the sun. She stopped at the front desk. A woman looked up, short braids, wide shoulders, sharp eyes. Her name tag read Zahara. I need rest, Amara whispered. Zahara tilted her head, said nothing, then walked around the counter and crouched beside the chair. Name? Amara. Last name? Not today. Zahara nodded. Fine. She guided her down the hallway. Room 4B, simple bed, worn-out rug, a window with no curtain. Zahara handed her a towel and closed the door behind her. Amara didn't change. She just sat, stared at the ceiling. The fan spun slowly, humming like a lullaby no one remembered the words to. Later, maybe hours, maybe days, Zahara returned. She brought a tray, rice, stew, water. Amara didn't eat. Zahara placed the tray on the floor, leaned against the door. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Amara looked up. Zahara folded her arms. He took something, didn't he? Amara blinked. Zahara didn't wait for an answer. He'll wish he hadn't. Amara opened her mouth. You don't know him. Zahara smirked. I don't need to. I know men like him. She stood. Before leaving, she added, When you're ready, we'll talk. 2 days passed. The rain didn't stop, but the light changed. Amara ate slowly. Then she asked for a laptop. Zahara brought it. I need to access corporate records, Amara said. Legal filings, past revisions. Zahara raised an eyebrow. You still trying to salvage the past? Amara shook her head. No, I want to see what they did to me. The browser opened. Familiar interface. She navigated through digital archives, tax codes, shareholding documents, board meeting minutes. Her name appeared, then vanished, between pages. Each time, pushed a little further out of sight, redacted, reassigned, rewritten. Her eyes narrowed. She found the document Cato had asked her to sign. It wasn't an HR form. It was a complete transfer of equity and IP rights. All of it. To him. She stared at her own digital signature. Dated. Time-stamped. She clicked deeper. Legal representation. Cato and Lovu's. Primary board contact. Lindy Abebe diversity requirement. Status marked fulfilled. Subsection. Disabled female co-founder. Amara and Lovu. File attached. Her hand hovered over the mouse. Then clicked download. Zahara returned later, with tea. Amara didn't speak. She slid the laptop across the table. Zahara scrolled. Paused. That's federal fraud. Amara nodded. You know what this means? Amara didn't answer. Zahara leaned forward. You could bury him. Amara looked out the window. The light had changed again. The rain had stopped. I don't want to bury him, she said. Zahara raised an eyebrow. No? I want to build something so radiant, she whispered. He has to bury himself from shame. Zahara leaned back, smiled for the first time. That I can help with. They started that night. The hallway became a war room. Charts, diagrams, password recoveries, communications traced, old devices brought back to life, emails unearthed. Among them, one from Lindy to the project administrator. Please remove Amara's name from all press materials. We are concerned it may generate pity optics not aligned with brand strategy. Zahara snorted when she read it. I've seen cockroaches with more dignity. Amara didn't laugh. She just stared at the words. Something in her chest cracked. But this time not from grief, from clarity. She started writing again. This time not proposals. Blueprints. For a platform, a hub, a movement. Tech made by and for women like her. She opened a blank page, typed the words, Ricey attack, rebuild from within. Then she added a note in pen on a yellow sticky. Not revenge, restoration. Zahara pinned it to the board. Later that week, Amara met with a journalist. Independent, reputable, known for breaking corruption scandals. She handed over the folder, said only one thing. Don't print my name, not yet. The article dropped 3 days later. Title, The Ghost in the Machine, How Tech's Most Celebrated Founder Erased a Woman to Build His Empire. The image was a blurred silhouette in a wheelchair. The city took notice. And somewhere in a boardroom, Cato and Lovu clenched his teeth for the first time in years. That night, Zahara walked into the war room. The board was covered now. Arrows, timelines, code names. She held 2 mugs, handed one to Amara. So, Zahara said, do you want him to lose everything? Amara sipped. The tea was strong. She smiled. No. She looked up. I want him to understand silence can roar. Zahara nodded. They drank in silence, and outside the House of Dawn, the first birds sang. The kettle whistled too long. Zahara didn't move. Neither did Amara. They sat in silence, eyes locked on the wall where a whiteboard now hung over the spice rack. The smell of burnt ginger tea curled around them like a ghost. Neither of them wanted to name. The kitchen had become something else. The shelves held more post-it notes than food. The corkboard beside the fridge was no longer filled with recipes or chore charts. It was now a map of betrayal, of power, of revenge crafted with surgical calm. They called it the war room. Amara rolled closer, her lap covered in a notebook labeled NS Weakness Grid. On the first page, ND Low-View Systems Vulnerabilities. Phase 1, Internal Discredit. Zahara circled 2 bullet points. Lindy Abebe, Assistant. Email signature traced to deletion request. She left fingerprints, Zahara muttered. Amara didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the tablet screen. A forwarded email blinked open. It was short, cold. Subject, Brand Protection Request from Lindy Abebe. To NDIC Media Relations. Please ensure Amara Ndlovu's name is omitted from all media. Inclusion of her identity may compromise the aspirational tone of our campaign. Zahara let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a scoff. They scrubbed you like a stain, she said, and now they're afraid you'll become the headline. Amara leaned back. Her hands were steady now. She had stopped flinching, stopped doubting. She had become quiet, yes, but not still. Her silence had grown teeth. She tapped the edge of the tablet. We'll archive every trace, dates, logs, message IDs. Zahara nodded. Already started. I've got backups in 3 locations. One's even in a coffee tin under the floorboards like a grandma hoarding sugar. A knock came at the door. A girl, maybe 21, peeked in. Thin scarf, nervous fingers. I heard you needed help with graphics? Amara turned. Zahara smiled gently. Come in. We're building something that might just piss off the right people. The girl stepped in. And so the army grew. They didn't call it that, but they knew. Every morning, more women came. An engineer with burn scars on her arms. A designer who walked with a cane. A coder who had once hacked into a bank's back end just to delete debt for a friend, and had served 2 years for it. All women, all marked, all erased somehow, somewhere, by someone. Now they were building something from the ashes. Tech was no longer just an idea. It was moving, breathing, taking shape on scraps of butcher paper, napkins, the backs of invoices, even Zahara's old divorce papers. Amara led every meeting with one sentence. We build from the inside out. They created modular assistive devices, fashion designed for movement and dignity, a networking app that didn't just connect, it protected. They weren't asking for seats at the table anymore. They were building their own. One night, Amara rolled into the kitchen late. Zahara was at the stove reheating rice no one had asked for. Amara placed a USB drive on the counter. Send this to NACFI. Zahara raised an eyebrow. Corruption Bureau. Amara nodded. Every falsified document, every misuse of federal funds, every board vote that violated disability equity laws, it's all there. Zahara stirred the pot slowly. The aroma of cloves filled the room. You sure? Yes. Zahara turned off the stove, then smiled. Good. They ate in silence. 3 days later, the message came in. Anonymous. A journalist's inbox. The story appeared at dawn. No bylina, no names. Just facts. A whisper disguised as a scream. Headline. Behind the code. The woman they erased to win. The article spread. Social media took it like fire to dry grass. Investors began asking questions. NDIC's own internal committee launched a routine review. Cato held a press conference, smiled too tightly, spoke too fast. Lindy stood beside him, her hands folded, her smile frozen. Zahara pulled the laptop closer. You've got them twitching. Amara didn't smile. Not yet. Later that evening, as the team mapped out next phases, one of the interns knocked over a mug. Coffee spilled across the floor. The liquid pooled under the whiteboard. No one moved. Then Zahara knelt and began wiping. You know, she said, not looking up, you never answered my question. Amara paused. What question? Do you want him to lose everything? Amara looked down at the map, at Cato's name, at Lindy's, at the company that once bore her soul like a second skin. No. Zahara leaned back. Amara's voice was quiet, sharp. I want him to know he didn't break me, that he never had the power to. Zahara tilted her head. You're not trying to ruin him. No, Amara said. I want him to see what I built without him, and realize what he lost was never mine to lose, but his to waste. Zahara chuckled softly. Outside, thunder rolled again, a dry one, no rain. This time, no one flinched. The room felt warmer, or maybe just clearer. The wall calendar had a new note. Next goal, public beta launch. Underneath, scribbled in red, Innovation for Tomorrow Gala, NDIC host. Amara stared at it. Zahara followed her gaze. You know he'll be there. Amara nodded once. I hope he is. Zahara hesitated. You ready for that? Amara turned back to her screen. You only fear shadows when you haven't seen the light. And in that moment, it became clear. The war was never just about reclaiming. It was about revealing, about standing in the very place where they tried to silence her and choosing to speak, not with vengeance, but with proof of survival, of power reborn, of quiet that could roar. The printer clicked behind them. A logo spilled onto the page. A phoenix, wings wide, painted in red. The elevator doors slid open with a sigh. Light hit her face, flashing, pulsing, not from cameras yet, but from the giant LED wall across the convention center. A crimson phoenix unfurled its wings in slow motion. People stopped, turned. Then the name below it glowed. Rysiatech. She rolled forward. Eyes followed. A few whispered. Some nodded. Others just stared. Amara didn't stop. The new wheels on her chair moved smooth, silent, gliding over marble like it belonged there. She entered the hall. The Nairobi Tech Futures Expo was packed. Every major name was there. Companies with billion-dollar valuations, governments in partnership, cameras live streaming every pitch, every handshake. But none drew the same kind of crowd as booth 34. Hers. Amara reached the edge and stopped. Zahara stood waiting. "You ready for this?" Amara tilted her head. "I was born ready, I just didn't know it." Zahara grinned. The other women from House of Dawn were already in motion. A soft-chinned engineer with copper braids adjusted a demo unit. The designer with the cane helped a curious teenager try on a modular jacket that shifted weight distribution automatically. An elderly woman in a floral dress held up a smart mirror designed for wheelchair eye-level scans. They weren't a team. They were a force. The Rysiatech booth wasn't just a display. It was an experience. People lined up, filmed, asked, downloaded the app. Amara watched from the side, her fingers wrapped gently around the joystick of her chair. Zahara leaned in. "Guess who's 3 booths down?" Amara didn't look. "Kato." Zahara nodded. "He's watching, can't stop." A brief silence. Then Zahara added, "He doesn't recognize half his old investors anymore. Most of them are here. With us." Amara didn't smile. Her eyes flicked up. On the main banner above their booth, in bold white, "Rebuild from within." Later that day, she took an interview. The journalist asked the question everyone wanted. "Is this your response to Ndlovu Systems?" Amara tilted her head. "My response," she said softly, "is not to what they did to me. It's to what they thought I couldn't do without them." The clip went viral in under an hour. That evening after the booth closed, Amara sat in the rooftop lounge of the hotel. The skyline of Nairobi shimmered beneath her like a promise waiting to be kept. Zahara joined her with 2 mugs. Amara took one. Steam rose between them. "They called," Zahara said. "Who?" "The NDIC, National Digital Inclusion Council." Amara didn't respond. "They want you to keynote their next gala." Silence stretched. "They're offering full press, unlimited time, lifetime partnership." Still no answer. Zahara took a sip of tea. "They say it's the first time they've invited someone back who was previously scrubbed." Amara raised an eyebrow. Zahara grinned. "Their words, not mine." Amara set her cup down, then whispered, "Is Kato going?" Zahara blinked, then slowly nodded. "He's one of the scheduled speakers." Amara stared out the window. The lights blinked on a rooftop across the city. A wind picked up. Her hair fluttered. She didn't speak for a long time. When she did, her voice was clear. "Say yes." Zahara exhaled. "You sure?" "Yes." Her tone was flat, calm, like the surface of water before a storm. "I want the phoenix in full view," she added, red, glowing, behind me. Zahara paused. "We'll need custom projection, visual engineers, some stage design." "Do it." Amara leaned back, then said softly, "I won't burn him, but I'll make sure he feels the heat." The week leading up to the gala moved like wind. Sponsors doubled. Emails flooded in. A former partner reached out quietly. Eli Haruna, once ousted from Ndlovu Systems after a failed pitch, now quietly thriving in renewable fintech. He asked for a meeting. They met in a quiet cafe far from the city center. He walked in first, suit sharp, no tie, still wore the same glasses. He paused when he saw her. "Amara." "Eli." He sat, took a breath. "I saw the Rysiatech platform." She waited. You wrote that funding strategy, didn't you? Same language from the milestone pitch years ago, but cleaner now. She didn't nod. Didn't deny it either. Eli leaned forward. I'd like to invest. Amara folded her hands. Why now? Eli looked her in the eyes. Because I remember how he looked at you when you pitched ideas he claimed as his, and I remember how you looked at him like he was the one holding the match. He reached into his coat, pulled out a check, a large one. She didn't even touch it, just stared. Keep it, he said, or tear it. Either way, I'm in. Then he added more softly, we need you. That night, Amara sat alone again, not in grief, not in fear, but in preparation. Her fingers moved across the screen. Code, copy, corrections. On the wall behind her, the Resiatech logo glowed faintly in red. The phoenix no longer rising. Now it flew, fully formed, full wingspan. No more ash, just air. The following morning, a call came in. Unknown number. She answered. A familiar voice. Not Cato. Lindy. Amara. Amara didn't speak. I don't expect forgiveness, Lindy said, but I wanted to say, I wasn't blind, I just didn't think you'd survive. Silence. I thought he'd ruin you. Amara exhaled. Lindy's voice cracked. But you rose, and I just wanted to say thank you for showing me. Then the line went dead. Amara stared at the screen, didn't call back, didn't save the number. She whispered to no one, rise and don't look down. Later that afternoon, Zahara entered the room. It's confirmed, she said. NDIC Gala, you're closing the night, final speaker, keynote. Amara nodded. Zahara hesitated. Amara? Yes? Are you going to expose him? Amara turned to face her, eyes steady. No. Zahara frowned. Amara's voice was quiet, almost gentle. I don't need to. She wheeled over to the window. The sun was setting. The light spilled over her shoulders like fire. He'll already be burning. The cameras fired like lightning against polished glass. Inside the ballroom of the Nairobi International Convention Center, everything shimmered. Chandeliers like frozen stars, violins weeping in the background, waiters gliding silently with flutes of champagne. Kato Ndlovu adjusted his cufflinks, dark gray suit, perfectly pressed. A stage loomed behind him, bathed in gold. He smiled for the camera, tilted just enough for the right angle. Let them capture the jawline, the watch, the man who had weathered public doubt and came back stronger. The NDIC Gala had always been his playground. Tonight, it was his redemption. They had listed him as industry luminary. His speech would open the evening. He nodded to the MC, walked toward the podium. The applause started on cue. He inhaled, paused, and stepped into the spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice smooth, trained. When we speak of innovation, we speak of courage. When we speak of courage, we must remember, technology has no conscience. But we do. A few heads nodded. The first rows beamed. He continued, polished, controlled. No stammer, no sweat, until the lights shifted, not by much. Just a hue. Gold turned amber. Amber bled into red. Then the screen behind him flickered. He turned. It wasn't his slide. The phoenix. Red, wings wide, feathers alive. And beneath it, in white. Resiatech. The music cut. The applause froze. A voice echoed. Please welcome our final keynote speaker, our closing voice. His breath caught. Then the voice spoke her name. Amara Ndlovu. He turned sharply. The ballroom went silent. She entered from stage right. Not center, not spotlighted, but radiant. The wheels of her golden-trimmed chair moved in sync with the pulsing backdrop. The gown she wore was deep crimson, tailored to perfection, trailing like fire behind her. Hair swept back, eyes steady. Every flashbulb went off at once. She stopped beside the podium. The host bowed and stepped aside. She didn't speak right away. She let the room fill with the quiet. Then she looked straight ahead. Tonight, she began, we celebrate digital inclusion. We applaud innovation. We raise glasses to progress. Her voice was firm, warm, without tremble. But what happens, she continued, when innovation forgets who lit the first spark? She turned slightly. The screen behind her shifted. Contracts, diagrams, her signature, her name, her removal. A timeline appeared. Amara Ndlovu, co-founder, revoked. A map of deletion. She didn't narrate it. She didn't need to. Gasps spread like cracks across the floor. Then the final slide. NDIC Grant 2023, Inclusion Compliance, met by disability status filing. The footnote circled in red, used A. Ndlovu's. The room exhaled all at once. And then silence, until a chair scraped. Cato stood. His face was frozen, not in rage, in calculation. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Amara turned to him. "I once believed silence meant weakness," she said, her voice soft now, threaded with steel. "Tonight I've learned silence can be armor, a shield. And when you break it, what remains isn't noise, it's truth." The audience didn't clap. They held their breath. Amara stepped back. The screen went black. One beat, two. Then, doors opened at the back. Two plainclothes officers entered, walked without urgency, approached the stage. Cato stepped back. Amara didn't move. The taller officer spoke. "Cato Ndlovu, you are under investigation for federal fraud, identity falsification, and misappropriation of government funds under NDIC Directive 204B. Cato laughed. Small, dry. "You're joking." He looked around. "Are you all really buying this? This is theater, PR warfare. She's lying." The shorter officer pulled out a warrant. Signed. Stamped. Cato's face shifted. His eyes darted. "No, wait. The taller one stepped forward. The cuffs clicked. Cold. Final. Flashbulbs exploded again. But this time not for him. For her. He turned to her. Desperate. "Amara, please." She met his gaze and spoke like a whisper carved from stone. Silence is also an answer. Then turned away. The officers walked him out. The crowd didn't follow. They stayed, staring, processing, still stunned. The host stepped forward, trembling slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight." Amara didn't linger. She left the stage quietly, down the back ramp, away from the light. Zahara waited near the service elevator, eyes wide. "You did it." Amara didn't smile, only whispered, "I didn't destroy him." Zahara nodded slowly. No, he destroyed himself. They moved together, the hallway dark. The only light behind them, the faint red glow of the Phoenix projected on the ballroom wall, still flying. The air inside Phoenix Haven buzzed with something electric, not the hum of fluorescent lights nor the static from old speakers. It was the kind of energy that filled a room when history was about to sit down in the front row. Amara adjusted the mic on her collar. Outside the conference room, women lined the hallway, some in wheelchairs, some with canes, others with prosthetic limbs, scars visible and invisible. They weren't waiting for help. They weren't waiting for validation. They had come to hear the woman who had once been dragged out into the rain and left for ruin, and who now stood in the center of her own sanctuary, a sanctuary she built. The screen behind her flickered to life. The logo pulsed gently. Ryciatech, red wings, a sharp beak, a shape that had grown over time, from sketch to file to movement. She glanced toward Zahara, who stood near the tech console. A soft nod. Then Amara rolled forward. No stage, no podium. Just her and the room. "I once thought silence was weakness," she said quietly. The audience leaned in. She didn't raise her voice. "But silence," she continued, "is often the last breath before transformation." Scattered nods. Some eyes brimmed with unshed tears. She inhaled. "Today is not about what was taken. It's about what was born in the ruins." Behind her, a clip played. Not the scandal, not the arrest. A simple edit. Footage of the House of Dawn kitchen, women soldering parts, designing apps, testing prototypes, laughing, arguing, creating. Then the Ryciatech app, live streaming successful deployments in rural villages, mobility kits, access terminals, remote consulting pods. Applause swelled slowly like rain turning into storm. But Amara lifted her hand. The room quieted. "There's one more thing," she said. Zahara tapped a button. Another screen lit up. Footage of Cato Ndlovu. Not the boardroom, not the gala. The court steps, reporters surrounding him, his lawyer at his elbow, then audio, his voice, spliced from private recordings, reconstructed from files he never thought would resurface. I should have let her die. Gasps. Silence. Then Amara's voice cut through. Forgiveness is a power I reserve for those who show remorse. Justice is the promise I owe to every woman who ever believed her voice didn't matter. A door opened at the back of the room. Footsteps echoed. Gasps again. It was him, Kato, unshaven, tired, not in chains. But his presence alone tightened the air like a fist around a throat. He didn't speak, just walked, then dropped to his knees. In front of her, somebody reached for their phone. Someone else whispered, "What is he doing?" But no one moved. He lowered his head. I lost everything," he said. "You were right." Amara blinked once, then again. "I was never trying to be right." His voice cracked. "I've been watching. I saw what you built, what you became. You didn't fight me, you just outgrew me." He lifted his face. Tears clung to the corners of his eyes. "I don't want anything, I wanted to say I was wrong." She looked down at him, but not with triumph, not with anger, with something deeper, sadness. She leaned forward slightly, then tapped her tablet. The screen behind them changed. A recording began to play. Not of him, of her. Alone, in the rain. Audio distorted, but clear. Her cries, the sound of the door slamming, the clatter of wheels against wet tile, the sound that had stayed inside her skull for months. Kato looked up, staring at the sound like it was a gun. And then, the doors opened again. 2 uniformed officers stepped in. No sirens, no announcement, just presence. The crowd parted. Zahara stood still, not surprised. The lead officer spoke. "We're here to enforce bail revocation." Kato froze. What? There were conditions. No public appearances, no media contact, no attempts at personal intimidation. "But The officer held up a warrant. Kato turned to Amara. "Please, say something, help me." She inhaled, not out of vengeance, but because she finally could. "No." Her voice didn't shake. She added gently, "This isn't about punishment. This is about pattern." The officers moved. Kato didn't fight, didn't flail, only whispered once as they took his arms. "You win." Amara closed her eyes. "No," she said. "We both lost the day love turned into power." The doors closed behind him. The room remained still. And then Amara turned, back to the women, to the future. She placed her hands on the wheels, moved toward the center of the light. She spoke again. "This world will try to make you small. It will call you broken, difficult, replaceable. It will write over your name and ask you to smile while it does." She stopped, then looked each of them in the eye. But one day, those same people will kneel in the spaces they once stood, and when they do, don't look back. The light caught her face. Sharp, bright. Final. Go forward, toward the fire, toward the light. And she moved, the wheels gliding. The corridor flooded with sun. Glass walls framed her on both sides, and reflected above her, the crimson phoenix, wings stretched, in full flight, alive. Sometimes life doesn't fall apart all at once. It unravels quietly, in the overlooked silences, the subtle betrayals, the doors that close with a soft click rather than a slam. It's in those moments, when the world turns its back, that the soul is asked a question not everyone is ready to answer. What will you become when no one is looking? Some carry their pain like armor, some bury it deep, but a few let it teach them how to rise, not in rage, not in revenge, but in clarity. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the whisper that says, "I am still here," even after the storm has taken everything. Justice, in its truest form, is not about erasing others. It's about reclaiming space, reclaiming voice, reclaiming self. And in doing so, it often forces us to let go of the need to be seen and instead become undeniable. Forgiveness is not a gift we owe to those who broke us. It is a freedom we grant ourselves when we realize their actions no longer define the story we are writing. Healing does not mean forgetting. It means remembering differently, on our own terms, in our own language. To those who have ever been silenced, overlooked, or made to feel small, you are not the shadows they tried to cast you in. You are the light they never saw coming. And no matter how long it takes, the moment will arrive when the world must sit and listen. Not because you shouted, but because your existence speaks louder than anything they tried to erase. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, or if it reminded you of someone you know walking through their own storm, please take a moment to share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear how it resonated with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next journey. And wherever you're listening from, thank you. You matter. You always have. Let the light find you.